Blade Tidwell made his MLB debut, and it did not go well. The Mets bats had their chances but couldn't cash in. On this edition of Locked On Mets, I'm going to break down Game 1 of the Mets doubleheader and set the stage for Game 2 coming up.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, we watched the debut of Blade Tidwell in Game 1 of a doubleheader against the Cardinals. I want to thank the rain because I had a little family vacation that I went on yesterday for a nice little day trip. So it was nice to get a day off, come back, relax. And I got back in time to pretty much tune on right when first pitch started to see Blade Tidwell make his debut. And I was fired up because it's always fun to watch one of the top prospects get their chance. But you also have to understand the context when you are watching a guy make his debut under these circumstances. This was not Blade Tidwell making his debut in the same way that Christian Scott did last year, where Christian Scott started the year in AAA, checked all the boxes, was lights out, and the Mets were bringing up Christian Scott because they thought that he was their best bet to win not just a game, but their best bet to stay in the rotation and be a part of the Mets rotation. This was Blade Tidwell is the one arm that makes sense, so let's call him up because the circumstances of the Mets needing a spot starter for the last time, by the way, for this month. They have enough off days throughout the rest of the month of May. Also, Paul Blackburn made a rehab appearance today, so he's on the mend. The Mets will not need to call on Blade Tidwell, Justin Hagenman, Brandon Waddell, any of these guys over the coming weeks. This is sort of the last time you're going to see it. Brandon Sproat had already started during the week. He's not quite ready, and he's also more of a high-profile prospect, so you don't want to necessarily throw him into the fire. This was a testament to, for one, the stuff of Blade Tidwell that they figured, let's just try it and see if he can, on adrenaline and sheer stuff, get through this outing and have a smooth one. And also just a testament of need. So here's a guy that, yes, his last 2 starts in AAA, he struck out 9, but he gave up 4 runs in one of those starts. He has an ERA of 5 in AAA. This is not a finished product. And we saw that in this start. This kid still needs to develop some. I enjoyed watching him pitch, sort of old school delivery, the way he comes across the mound, puts the hands over his head. The first comparison that Gary Cohen throws out of the broadcast is it's a delivery that looks like Tom Seaver. Probably not the best comp to start with. Obviously, he wasn't actually comparing the stuff to Seaver, just the delivery. But early on, Blade Tidwell was surviving. And I think the one thing you could say for Tidwell is, for one, the fastball, it's going to play, especially when he learns to command it a little bit better. And also, he competed, and he didn't look scared on the mound. It's funny, I actually looked back to see what Thomas Szapucki's MLB debut was, because I remember Szapucki just getting crushed. And so I was going to use that as a comp of, well, it wasn't as bad as Szapucki. And the funny thing is Szapucki's debut, who gave up 6 runs in 3 2/3 innings pitch, and that's exactly what Blade Tidwell does. But there is times where you see a prospect come up and they look scared on the mound, and I didn't feel that way with Blade Tidwell. I just feel like he doesn't have the tools in the toolkit yet to get a good MLB lineup out, and I think this was a tough debut because you have a lot of veteran hitters in that lineup, and when he ends up in a situation against Brendan Donovan with bases loaded and he's going to try to get a fastball by him, he has to execute that fastball to perfection because Brandon Donovan knows what's coming. And if you don't locate that pitch with pinpoint control on the outside black and ideally up, he's going to make you pay for it. And ultimately, that's what you saw a lot, where Blade Tidwell doesn't have the put away pitch just yet. He'll rip off a great slider, but then his next 3 sliders, he can't get it over the plate, or he can't get it where it's convincing enough to get a chase because it's these lazy sliders that just sort of break out of the zone and he's just not a finished product yet. That's as simple as it is. And I think he'll get there. And it's just a matter of how does he get to the big leagues to make an impact for the Mets? Can he, with this new windup that he just started this offseason, can he find more pitchability, be able to get himself into a rhythm and locate, for one, he's got to be pinpoint the fastball because that's the one pitch he's always going to have. And he wasn't pinpoint with the fastball today either. And it also ranged in velocity from 92 to 98. So it wasn't consistent. But also, can he get that slider to the point where it's a really good pitch he can throw consistently? Because if he just focused on those two pitches and he abandoned the changeup and the sinker and he just focused on two pitches, fastball, slider, I think there is a potential elite late inning reliever. I think that fastball, instead of going from 92 to 98, but typically, sitting more 95, I think that fastball then play up to 97, 98. And then that slider is a really good pitch as well when he, really rips it right. But there's other times where it just, and again, sometimes when you shorten up, you get more out of your secondaries as well. So I still don't know if he's going to be able to put it all together and be a quality big league starter, but you're seeing him at the beginning of the evolution that he still has to go through. He's just not quite there yet. I think the fact that he was hanging in there was a testament to his competitiveness and the fact that the stuff can still play. It's just a tough lineup with all those veteran hitters. You're going up against Nolan Arenado and Wilson Contreras and Brendan Donovan, and guys are just tough at bats. And he got to have a couple jams too. I mean, early on, that the Mets were going to be able to sort of walk this tightrope and play Tidwell, and he might get them through 4 innings. Only 2 runs allowed through the first 3, and then it just sort of unraveled in the 4th. But it started to unravel more in the 3rd inning. In the 2nd inning, he gave up a leadoff homer, but still it was in a pretty good spot. Issued a walk after that, picked up 2 strikeouts. The one hit he allowed in the inning was a bunt base hit. He gave up a hit in the 1st inning. It didn't look bad the first 2. 3rd inning, pop up, then 3 straight singles to load the bases. The Mets were fortunate on a sac fly double play where Jesse Winker makes the catch, throws it home. Luisangel Acuna should have cut it off, and they would have had Nolan Arenado dead to rights at 3rd. Instead, he lets it go through. Torrens picks it up. They try to get Contreras at 2nd. Arenado breaks too soon. They get Arenado in a rundown to get the out there to get out of that jam. So that one could have been a much worse inning. Unfortunately, we'll talk about Winker to close out the show. He might have an oblique injury, so that might reshuffle this Mets team. But that was the 3rd inning where he was fortunate to get that additional out to strand all those runners. 4th inning, it just fell apart in him. Pop out, then base hit, then he hits a batter, gets a fly out, so he's on the verge of getting out of it. But then he walks the bases loaded for Brendan Donovan. That's that hit that I talked about where Donovan gets the knock. Nolan Arenado then draws a walk. I was surprised they let them in for all of that. And then he gave up another hit before they pulled him to Wilson Contreras. At that point, it was 6-2. I thought Mendoza maybe should have, pulled the hook on him a little bit sooner. I would have preferred if they would have had Genesis Cabrera pitch to Donovan. And then you never know. Maybe the Mets stay in the game. But I get it. You know what? It's a doubleheader. You're just trying to survive the day. You got a doubleheader, then you're because the Cardinals did a split admission doubleheader. The next game is going to start a little bit later, and then it's basically like a night game going into a travel day immediately right into a series tomorrow in Arizona, and you have to get through 18 innings. So I understand why Carlos Mendoza with 2 outs was just hoping that Brendan Donovan would hit a hard ground ball to Jeff McNeil, or I guess at that point it might have been Acuna playing second base, but regardless. And instead it just gets up the middle. If you get a ground ball out there, wow, Tidwell got through 4, you just sigh of relief and move on from it. Instead, that's ultimately where the game kind of got away from the Mets, but they still were in it. They were still in it because Genesis Cabrera comes on, gets a fly out, stayed on and got 5 more outs. Great outing for him, which is a good sign because the Mets are going to keep them in their bullpen for a little bit as their left-handed reliever. Huascar Brazaban gets the final out of the 6th inning. I bet you he's still good to go for the second game of this doubleheader. We'll talk about the second game in the final segment today. Austin Warren, he pitched a scoreless 7th inning. Reed Garrett, a scoreless 8th. So the Mets were able to shut the faucet off once Tidwell came out. They just could never quite catch up and take the lead back. But they had their opportunities. I want to talk about the bats because this was a game the Mets still should have won. Despite Blade Tidwell's lackluster debut or uneven debut, whatever you want to call it. The Mets had their chances, just couldn't come through. I want to talk about the bats in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. Hear the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever because with last minute deals, all-in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as game time gets closer, meaning you could score an incredible deal. I don't usually buy my tickets until I'm walking into the ballpark. Then I pull up from the Game Time app. I take a view of my potential seats before I buy, so I know exactly what to expect when I arrive. If I like what I see, I could buy my tickets in a matter of seconds, and they're sent right to my phone. It could not be any easier. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our goal of 14,000 subscribers. If you're liking the video, throw a like on it. Leave a comment. What did you think about Blade Tidwell's debut? Were you disappointed? Did you expect this? I think it was, I don't want to say it's what was to be expected, but I thought that either it was going to be brilliant or bad, and it ended up being bad. I didn't think there was going to be much of a middle ground, though. He almost found the middle ground. He gets a ground out in that situation there with the bases loaded, and it would have been like, whew, he survived and only gave up 2 runs, but it could have been a lot worse, and it ended up being a lot worse. So let's talk about the bats in this game, though, because the Mets absolutely could have and should have won. First inning, they get a couple of 2-out doubles from Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo back-to-back. That played the first run. Third inning, Juan Soto a leadoff single. Pete Alonso doubles again. Brandon Nimmo hits a comebacker and is out, but Jesse Winker hits a sac fly. Luis Torrens draws a walk, so he still had a couple guys on. Then Jeff McNeil popped up on the first pitch. That was a blown opportunity. 6th inning, Jeff McNeil, leadoff walk. Luisangel Acuna, who had a great game, got a base hit. 2 runners at first and second, nobody out. I was shocked that Carlos Mendoza let Jose Azocar hit in that spot. This is why I didn't want Azocar on the roster, because he was going to get played. But the fact is, 2 innings later, you let Tyrone Taylor hit. So why not let Taylor hit in the 6th inning? I know it's a doubleheader, but Tyrone Taylor would have been fine playing 14, 15 innings. I mean, who cares? That's a spot where I just don't like that Azocar got in that bat. He almost hit into a double play ball. Luckily, they didn't even try to throw him out at first base. He just didn't hit it hard enough, hit off the pitcher's shoe, which slowed it down. But maybe Taylor gets a hit there and the Mets get a little bit more out of it. Regardless, Francisco Lindor hits a double play ball of his own, but a bad throw allows him to reach safely and the run to come in. With Lindor on second base, though, in that 6th inning, Soto strikes out looking. And he struck out looking a couple times. The first time he struck out looking, I think it was a good take. The ball was definitely out of the zone. This one, you can't take it. Got a lot of plate, and yes, it was a little bit low, but you got to be looking to swing there with Lindor on second base. Base hit there. You get another run, and the Mets lose by a run. So that was one missed opportunity. But the real missed opportunity came in the 8th inning. You had Luis Torrens leadoff walk. Jeff McNeil grounded out and traded places with him. Then Acuna gets a base hit. Again, Acuna, great game. 3 for 3, or actually 3 for 4. 3 for 3 when I made these notes originally. 3 for 3 with a walk. 3 for 4 with a walk. He ends the game, I believe. I think he got the final out, hit the pop-up. But this time they choose to pinch hit Tyrone Taylor with a couple of runners on, and Tyrone Taylor gets a base hit to drive in a run. Francisco Lindor gets a hit to drive in 2 more. Juan Soto walks to load the bases. So now it's 6-5, and you got Pete Alonso up. He works a full count, and it's tough because you don't want to knock Pete because Pete has been amazing this year. And really, you kind of have to credit Jojo Romero for locating a backdoor breaking ball about as well as you can, where if it wasn't touching the zone, it was as close to touching as it could. It basically looped around the plate, so it's a tough pitch for Pete to do anything with but foul it off, and it ends up getting in there for strike 3. I almost don't even want to criticize him because the best thing he could have done is try to foul it off, and that's a tough pitch to get a bat on anyway. And if that's called a ball, you get a run attached to it. It was bases loaded. So I'm not really too upset with Pete, but it's just a frustrating situation where you do have to credit the pitcher on the other side for executing. And then Nimmo flew out, destroying the bases. Destroying the bases loaded, that is. Then ninth inning, Vientos gets a leadoff single. Starling Marte comes in a run. He advances the second on a wild pitch, but Terren struck out. Jeff McNeil hits one hard, but right at the right fielder, and then Luisangel Acuna pops out to end the game. The Mets went 3 for 15 with runners in scoring position. They left 12 on base. Tough game. You think about a game where you lose by 1 run, and there was just so many different instances where you could have gotten that run back, whether it was Soto striking out with Lindor on second base, whether it was Pete Alonso not extending that at bat and then maybe driving the baseball, and you could absolutely have won the game through 9 innings, whether it was Nimmo not coming through in that same spot, or at the end of the game, Acuna, who gets 3 hits in the game. If one of his hits came in the 9th inning, the Mets tie it up, and it's a different ball game. They're going into extras. So it was just a tough one. And then again, you look at the pitching side of things. If you maybe have the hook on Blade Tidwell a little bit sooner, then potentially you're not in as big of a hole and you end up winning the game. But it's tough to just second guess everything. It's a very tough game to manage for Carlos Mendoza when you have a whole other 9-inning game to play. So I don't want to be too critical of him. I thought there was some opportunities where the Mets, maybe should have made a move here or there that might have helped them. Again, getting Till out of the game sooner, maybe batting Tyrone Taylor for Jose Azocar sooner. But it is what it is. A tough loss for the Mets. Luckily, they have another game to try to salvage this series and walk away with a victory. They got Tylor Megill, one of their best pitchers this year, on the mound. I want to talk about the second game of this doubleheader in just a minute. First, though, another quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoff action is right here, right now. We're seeing a lot of exciting games, NHL playoffs, going on as well. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet. You're going to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel makes betting so easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine your live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $200 bonus today. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're watching on YouTube today, again, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, I'm wondering right now if the Mets have released their starting lineup yet for game 2. It will be Tylor Megill versus Andre Palante. Palante, I think it was 4 runs allowed against the Mets, but he still pitched pretty deep into that game. It was the inning where Francisco Lindor got caught up and Tyrone Taylor came around to score, if you remember that earlier on this year, a 4-run inning. Other than that, Palante was pretty solid. So you look at this matchup, Megill is definitely the better pitcher so far this season, but Palante has some experience going up against the Mets. Megill does not. So we'll see how that pans out. When it comes to the bullpen in this game, the Mets were able to stay away from Max Kranick, Jose Budo, Edwin Diaz, Ryan Stanek, and Daniel Nunez, who is back. So they have a lot of arms they can go to. If the game doesn't go well, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Huascar Brazaban got back in there. Austin Warren, I believe they have him for both games of this doubleheader as the 27th man. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they chose to use him while they still have an opportunity to before he goes down. And the good thing about this situation right now, when it comes to using Blade Tidwell and where the Mets are out there pitching, now their bullpen can hopefully settle in, because I think Genesis Cabrera is going to be the left-hander and Daniel Nunez is going to be another high leverage arm. So now you are back in a comfortable spot where you got Edwin Diaz, you got Reed Garrett, but you also have Daniel Nunez along with Ryan Stanek. So you have more options to pitch in those high leverage spots at the end of games, allowing you to keep Max Kranick, Huascar Brazaban, and Jose Budo in roles that they have pitched pretty well in as bulk guys who can follow up your starting pitchers and sometimes get you out of jams or just give you those multiple innings of relief after the starters. So I think they're in a nice spot with the pen right now. They definitely have a rested enough bullpen for a game 2 of a doubleheader. Go out and win it. I mean, this is an opportunity to still win a series. No harm, no foul. Most doubleheaders get split anyway. Sure, the Mets absolutely could have won game 1, but you win game 2, it doesn't matter. You go to Arizona. If you can win that series and come home with a 4-2 road trip, you'll take it 100%. But you definitely want to get this game because the Cardinals, while it's tough to win the second game of a doubleheader, even if you lost the first one, it's still an easier team to beat than what you're going to face in Arizona. Arizona's a better team. So for this road trip to go well, get this one, because otherwise, you lose a series in Arizona, it's a 2-4 road trip. You win this one and you lose a series in Arizona, you're not going to be too mad at a 500 road trip. So this is an important game for the Mets to go out and win. Jesse Winker will not be there. I'm going to have a lot more on this on tomorrow's show as we'll get a clearer picture of what the Mets are doing with their roster. It is curious that Brett Baty has not been in the lineup in Syracuse for the last 3 days, might even be 4 days at this point. I checked. He wasn't in the lineup today. Is he hurt? I don't know. There's a chance he is. Or has he been hanging out in a St. Louis hotel because the Mets weren't sure what was going to happen with the weather and the doubleheader, and they're going to need an extra guy, and maybe Jesse Winker was already dealing with a little bit of something, although if he was, why was he out there in left field? I understand that they're probably going to have Nimmo play both games of this doubleheader, so getting Nimmo a DH game at least makes a lot of sense. I don't know what's going on with Baty and why he hasn't been playing in Syracuse, because if he's healthy, I imagine that's the move for the Mets. Jesse Winker hits the IL, Brett Baty enters the fold. I think you'd probably start to see a good amount of Mark Vientos getting some DH opportunities, Brett Baty getting some starts at third base, Jeff McNeil playing some outfield. You might DH Nimmo a little bit more and have McNeil start some games in left. Acuna is proving that you got to play him every game, and I expect him to be in there for the second game of this doubleheader. You got to let the youth play in this situation. There's going to be a guy that's going to have fresh legs to play 18 innings. It's Luisangel Acuna. So I imagine that you'll see Acuna at second base. Again, I still haven't seen a lineup yet. Otherwise, I'd break down what the lineup is for the Mets. I can check Twitter again real quick. But I imagine you're going to see Starlin Marte and Tyrone Taylor, because they didn't start, get in there. Obviously, Francisco Alvarez will be in there behind the plate. I would think that maybe this could be the first time we see Marte in the outfield if they wanted to give Juan Soto a DH, it's a DH day, a game at DH in the doubleheader. They could start Marte and right, or maybe they just DH Marte, or if they wanted to, maybe they play Jeff McNeil and right. Marte doesn't play, and you DH Soto. There's a lot of ways they can go about it. I'm going to look one more time here. Also, crazy stat that I'm now seeing once again on social media. The 34th game of the season apparently is cursed for the Mets. They have not won the 34th game of the season since 2010. Gary pointed that out in the broadcast. Wild that they haven't won that game in 15 years. Just crazy. I'm not seeing a Mets lineup just yet. They're still probably reeling a little bit, figuring out the Jesse Winker situation. How are they going to move their lineup around? Do they have any taxi squad player to put in that Winker spot? Is it Brett Baty? Who knows? But that just means that there's going to be a pretty exciting game that we get to watch later tonight that I can recap on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Mets. So I'll be able to talk about whatever we see in this game. I'll preview what lies ahead against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and with a little bit more time to sort of prep and maybe get some information on Brett Baty, we'll talk about the Mets options with Jesse Winker potentially heading to the IL with an oblique strain. If it's not Baty, my guess would be Jared Young. Give you another left-handed bat to put into that DH platoon potentially with Starling Marte, guy that can play second, third, left, right theoretically. So gives you more versatility on their roster. Another guy to talk about maybe is Drew Gilbert, but I feel like they want to let Gilbert continue to play every single day. This guy hasn't played every day consistently in over a year at this point. So, I mean, yes, he did down the stretch last year. Arizona Fall League he was playing. But, I mean, let's just see the kid play baseball for a couple months in Syracuse, unless you just are dying for a center fielder. And I don't think that's the situation with Jesse Winker potentially going down. I think this will just open up some more opportunities. I'm sure Starling Marte is going to get more run if Jesse Winker is out. That's just how I think the Mets are going to do it with their veteran and seeing what they have in him. But he hasn't been good this year. So there's also a world where at some point the Mets are looking to cut Marte's playing time. It's not going to be now. It'll be later this season. For now, though, I think it's likely going to be Beatty if he's healthy to make that swap. Otherwise, it could be Jared Young. But I think it's just going to be another reason why you don't take Luisangel Acuna out of the lineup, and probably why you can continue to play Jeff McNeil more and more and Tyrone Taylor more and more. I mean, those are the guys that I think should get the opportunities more than someone like Jared Young or Jose Azocar getting a couple extra chances. I prefer to see those 3A, 4A guys, either in AAA or on the bench, not eating up too much playing time over the guys that can still clearly make an impact. But we'll see what happens. Game 2 tonight. I will be, again, breaking down that game, previewing what lies ahead, and talking about the fallout of Winker's injury on tomorrow's edition of Locked On Mets. I appreciate all of you who tuned into the stream, or for those of you who watched the replay back or listened to the replay back, as you probably want to learn a little bit more about what I saw with Blade Tidwell's debut. Saw a guy that needs more time in AAA. Anyway, as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And for your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, which is always streaming on YouTube, taking you through all the latest in the world of sports. Check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube.